Hey everyone, welcome to Much Stew About Nothing. My name's Samuel, and this is my co-host Zach.
Hello.
Uh, Today we're going to talk about a special thing that's been talked about in the media for some time, and I think everyone knows what this is: artificial intelligence.
And many people are also quite afraid of it. So today we're going to be going through what is AI, what are its dangers, what are its good uses, and whether society can really benefit from it or not.
Yes. So
Yes.
let's talk about AI. Let's just get to the point. What is AI? First, let's define our what's it called? Let's do our definition.
The definition.
Yes.
Yeah. So, quote, the capability of computer systems or algorithms to imitate intelligent human behavior, end quote. And that's from Merriam-Webster, the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And also, for the nerds out there, it's a learning algorithm that basically has another algorithm that checks it. So it's fed information, it tries to imitate that information, and then it sends it to the other algorithm that checks it, and then that algorithm says whether it's recognizable as like real or fake. So then only until it's like it reaches the goal of real, it keeps doing the process over and over to basically reach a point where it's almost indistinguishable. Obviously, there's still ways to distinguish it, but that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. I got nothing to add about the definition of AI. I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that it double checked itself.
Yeah, well, that's kind of just that's how they develop it. So they train the AI, they train the algorithms, and then once it's trained sufficiently, that's when you're able to access it, like ChatGPT. So they basically put it through that process. They feed it like tons and tons of information from the internet, and it basically does that. Obviously, ChatGPT has a bit of a bias. I'm sure many people know about it, and that's most likely because of the developers, but that's a different part of this conversation. So,
So let's first start with the dangers of AI, of artificial intelligence. One of the things we put was it threatens jobs. I 100% agree on this subject because I remember when they were starting to make these arts of AI, they would use other people's art, the artist's art, and run it through the system. So they were stealing the art and then running it through the system so the AI could make art that's similar or better than the art.
and speaking of art, here from Forbes, it says media and marketing. Christian Hammond, chief scientist of natural sciences, told the BBC in 15 years, quote, 90% of news will be written by machines, end quote. Natural sciences have a software called Quill, an AI paraphrasing tool that writes company reports ahead of earning announcements. German publisher Axel Springer announced in February plans to transition into digital only, which includes job cuts in favor of modern technology and automation. Reporters for different media outlets like Business Insider, CNET, and CNBC have used ChatGPT to write news stories, though they have often been criticized for containing false information. So from this, we can see that while it is still flawed, it is very, very possible that it would replace many jobs in news and media as well as art and that kind of thing.
This also reminds me of what happened back in the 90s where we were talking, there was this talk, these scientists thought, oh, like we're getting smarter. It's like we have the washing machine, the refrigerator, we have machines to do automatic stuff. And people thought, whoa, we're going to have so much leisure time. We're going to have so much time to spend with family, spend on whatever we want to do. and they were like, we're gonna probably spend like about 7 hours on leisure time and then like 4 hours on work.
Oh my gosh.
And they predicted that, but we are in the future, and we see that instead of having more leisure time, we have less leisure time. Actually,
Yeah.
we're working so much. Like we work 9 to 5s, and it's like more than what they used to do decades ago. And so I don't truly believe he's gonna say that it's gonna be. I don't think AI is gonna help us, but in fact, there's gonna be we're gonna have like more people have to like educate themselves to control AI.
Yeah.
So you got to get a higher education, and it's going to cost more work and cause people to stress out more. And I don't think we're going to have as much leisure time as people think we will.
And that's another danger, is that whoever is developing the AI has total control of what it does. Like there's been like stories and videos about how AI says that it's going to take over humanity when it first gets the chance or something like that. But the reality is, first of all, that is easily preventable. And second of all, it's up to the developers. If they allow it to do that, that's their fault. They ought to. I mean, really, it's a huge risk for them because they're developing this, I mean, in a way, intelligent system. It's not, I would say it does have knowledge, but it's not intelligent. It's more just saying what it's told. So I think artificial intelligence is really kind of not what it should be called, just what they decided to call it.
I believe you that I think it's very important to know who's the head honcho, who's the CEO, who's controlling this. But it reminds me of the Manhattan Project, where they were making the atomic bomb. And they never second guessed themselves. They weren't like, what if we did make this? They didn't think, what if it could be this big blowing up, this thing that could cause mass destruction? They didn't think about that. They thought, well, what if the Russians get there first than us? And I was reading an article where the World Foundation, they were talking about how they were trying to put like 6 months into stopping AI, so people could just think about, where do we really want this to go? But the offer wasn't complete, because if the USS stops, what's stopping China from not, they want to get ahead of the curve. China wants to get ahead, Russia wants to get ahead, UK, France, Italy, they all want to get ahead of the curve. Why would we stop and think or second guess ourselves if we know that there's another nation who could be ahead of us?
Yeah, no one was really thinking about like how this would impact the world in the first place. They're just thinking about how they have to get, what is their goal even? Like everyone's rushing towards a certain goal, but we don't know what it is. We're racing to an unknown outcome. We don't want it to be Terminator, that's for sure.
Yes. Henley talked about limits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not,
as we know,
it's not really limited as it should be.
As we talked about, the world government I think they want to limit. I think the U.S. is doing, like, with Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, they're talking about how they should limit it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good priority.
Yeah.
I think it could be more powerful than a human.
Yeah, that's another danger.
It is. We also forget that robots are people of metal. Mm-hmm. That it takes a lot of heat. They're not as vulnerable as us. Mm-hmm. They do not have cells. They have metallic.
Yeah.
And they can overpower us with machinery. Machinery is stronger than humans.
So we have to really be careful and conscious of how we are allowing them to, inhibit, or not inhibit, but like physically manifest themselves in reality. So if we give them robot bodies, who knows what, we have to make sure that we tell them what to do, and that their artificial intelligence, what they're trained on, is limited to what their roles are supposed to be. For example, Elon Musk is working about that humanoid robot. And I think he's been very loud and adamant about being careful with AI and making sure it's limited and, under control.
I do believe, but I'm actually going to go it against. I really don't want robots to have a physical body. I think
I mean, I don't either, to be honest.
I think it's already I think by putting it in physical body we are limiting it because it's not able to, it's already unlimited by the internet.
Yeah.
And just having it in physical makes me worried because
That's why ChatGPT should never learn how to like access robots in like everyday homes and
it
stuff.
shouldn't. Yeah, I heard. Yeah, it's this stuff that I think we gotta limit it, not physically, but like in the internet. We gotta have more restrictions on the internet now.
Yeah.
It will be smarter than a human. I've been reading it. ChatGPT, I forgot its name. ChatGPT. It has an IQ of 155.
Oh my gosh.
It's five. I think it's five below Einstein. And I remember they were talking about how. Do you know how like Einstein, when he's talking about gravity? No, not gravity, but Newton. When I said the relative of mass.
Yeah.
When he's talking about to this one IQ person, do you think the one IQ person will understand what he's saying?
No, of course not.
No, he's not. And it's getting to the point where people are assuming that robots will become so smart they're going to speak in their own language that not even us humans can understand.
Well, here's the thing. This is the one thing that I think people don't realize. Robots aren't actually conscious. They're not entities. They are a computer. They're very limited to what we give them. So, I mean, if we give them access to the whole of the internet, they could create their own language if they really wanted to. It's just they also need prompts from the internet that would allow them to get the idea of doing that, because they cannot come up with their own ideas. They can only borrow ideas from humans. So that's another thing, is that while, yes, they are dangerous, I think the risks aren't exactly what I think people think that they are. Like, people, I think of AI nowadays as what most sci-fi AI was depicted as being like a fake but still almost conscious and sentient entity, which thankfully they aren't, at least not yet.
I love how you brought up entity, because that's actually going to go to one of our final points. Mm-hmm. But talking about AI, what's it called? Science fiction.
Yeah.
One of our worries is we think everything might turn out like every AI depiction, like Terminator. These beings that have physical bodies and then take over the human race. And so they created the laws of robotics. And the laws of robotics was written by Isaac Asimov. Hopefully I'm saying that. And he wrote it for Asimov. He wrote it for a science fiction novel. It was a short story called Runaround. And it was in 1942. And this was like the start of science fiction things, right? And the laws are like the first law is a robot must not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to become harmed. So a robot, in the sense, a robot can't hold a gun to a man's face and say, shoot him. Or a robot cannot use the command of, the robot can't beat up a human. 2, a robot must obey orders given by any human being except in orders which conflict the first law. So if a human says, bring me water, it must bring it water. If it says, I want you to go to the moon, it must go to the moon. But if it says, I need you to take a gun and shoot this man, it cannot do that because that contradicts the first law. And the third law is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. And this is just saying, this is where we get the entity, where it's a living being that needs to like every animal. It must be on top of the food chain and it must survive. And that's unreasonable to think that AI could think of like that. But again, it has conscience. We're going to talk about that a little later. So a robot can't put itself at harm, but it cannot harm others or itself. So if we're in a battlefield and a robot has a gun and it leaves its post, it cannot leave its post because one, it's been given the order to stay there, and two, it will cause humans to cause harm because behind the robot is humans. So if it runs, it cannot do that because it's making a human being experience harm.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, he also added later a fourth rule, or I don't know how you say it, but like a 0th rule. That was like the first and most important. And it was basically that a robot may not harm humanity or by inaction allow humanity to come to harm. So basically, like if really it's not the simplest of set of laws, even though it's only 3. Like, it's quite a bit to think about. But the fact that they can't harm humanity is quite important because they can indirectly harm people, which they can do things that don't necessarily conflict with the first and second laws, that can still harm people. So I think that's what the 4th law is for, which is important because it basically prevents them from doing things that hurt, our society, people, things like that, families. So
I really like these laws, and a lot of AI people say, no, these laws are unreasonable, and they talk to a point where they say that. And it's about to be in our last point. I'm actually going to group this all together. But another thing that we do is AI makes us lazy and dependent on technology.
Well, yeah, because, when it's potentially going to take up these jobs or, as you brought up earlier, way back earlier in this episode, you brought up how they were predicting that by a certain point we would all have like 7 hours of free time and only like 4 hours of work each day, and that the fact is free time is not what people really want. People think they may want it, but it's really more freeing to have something to do than to be sitting around like browsing an app looking for a movie to watch or something, or just trying to find a game to watch, or asking around online like, oh, anyone want to play this game with me, something like that. So really it's important that we don't lose the idea and don't forget that it is important to make sure that we are maintaining our skills that are kind of fundamental to survival. And if we give those up to AI, and if AI does that for us, then we are dependent on AI, and AI can basically do whatever it wants with us if it was able to. So
I loved when you were saying we become dependent on AI, that we lose the skills. I remember everyone, when in our time and age, in our generation, we say, this is my freedom. And freedom means nothing's chaining you down. You're as free as the birds. But
yeah,
that's not freedom.
No, that isn't.
It's like in the Bible, it's like it's discipline. Like having discipline helps you. Like exercising every day gives you a purpose, gives you a reason to live.
Exactly.
And then that introduces to suicide rates. And we become so dependent on technology. We need something to do. If we have leisure time, we must either one, play with your siblings, or if you're an adult, you play with your kids, you help your wife, you clean the lawn. I don't know, but you have to do something. You have to always be active. I think that's what we humans do. And I think by being conditioned to technology, we lose the skills that have gotten, that we assume, oh, AI is going to just do the engineering. Why do we need an engineering degree? Well, first of all, it would be very nice to know how to fix your car if it's stuck in the road. But also, we become so dependent that if AI just stops working, it just ends it, you know?
Yeah, I really like that you brought up, well, no, obviously I don't like suicide rates, but I think it was a really good point you made about suicide rates. And I think the fact is, I kind of want to expand upon that, because that is really a great example of how when we don't have anything to do, we kind of lose the feeling of meaning, which is exactly what people need. And then that leads to depression because we don't know why we're doing anything in the first place. And also things like social media, you're always looking at other people who are like pretending they have like a perfect life or something, or if they're having like a wonderful time wherever they are, and you just wish you could be there, but you're always on your phone. So you have no like opportunity. You're not making an opportunity to be able to go there. So you're just, like drowning in your own tears. And a lot of times, because teens end up in those situations, there's really for them, because they, especially in public school, when they, don't have any upbringing that gives them purpose, for example, like Christianity, then their only hope is to leave reality. And, it's really sad that that's the case, but it really does end up being what happens a lot. So.
Yeah, it's sad to think about, but it does happen. When we think of laziness and dependent on technology, I always think of the movie WALL-E, where it depicts this dystopian where the villain is the AI who is given the wrong command by its master. And I just think WALL-E is a warning. It's such a good movie, but it tells us a warning about AI, and it tells us what our future is going to be if we continue down this path.
That's the thing. This is also, again, slightly off topic, but I'm glad you brought up WALL-E too, because it's strange with Hollywood. There's almost been what seems to be sort of a conditioning for different things. They've like been purposely, this is kind of getting a little bit like into conspiracy and stuff, but it's almost like they're putting different themes and different concepts in these fictional movies to condition your brains to think of that as preposterous and absurd. When I wouldn't be surprised if, someone, like Big Brother from 1984, not sure if you've read that, but just, it's almost like our society is being conditioned to accept certain things as like absurd, so that when those things become reality, we're not prepared for them, and they can, take advantage of that. But, that's kind of a sad note. So let's move on to the happy part, the good uses of AI.
Yes, what's good? Again, AI does the job people don't want to do, and don't need to do.
Yeah, that's nice because, it's actually helping in this case.
Yes. I would think this would be a great... I've seen news articles, and I've seen here where I live and down south that fast food restaurants have been lacking in workers. So this would be a great way to automate fast food. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next month, McDonald's just comes out and says, hey, we're just making AI to do our food. And I'm fine with that. I feel like I'm fine with that. What about you?
I think it could be okay. I think it really depends. It would obviously save companies a lot of money. I mean, it really depends on because there might be a heightened level of accuracy, but at the same time, there's a much higher risk for tampering when it comes to, because in a way, yes, they'd likely have it offline, but at the same time, it's always connected to something. So whatever device that it's running on in the building could probably be accessed by someone externally, and that could be a risk. And also, I think something I've thought about before is how a lot of these kind of jobs, that there's a reason you see a lot of younger people in these jobs. I think younger people ought to, like, not a lot of teens. Going back to teens, a lot of teens are either, living off of their parents' money, or they're finding ways to make money online. And I think a lot of them are avoiding these kinds of 9-to-5 jobs because they don't have the social skills to do them. Okay, maybe not 9-to-5, that's full-time, but like these in-person jobs where you have to go face-to-face with people. I think our generation, Gen Z, has kind of lost the social skills that were somewhat essential for those careers. So now, if you go to McDonald's, you just go to the drive-thru because it's too awkward to go in and face a Gen Zer who doesn't know how to socialize properly.
Yeah.
So obviously that might be like where, AI could step in and just fill in that gap, and, while Gen Z recovers from all this stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I like fast food. I think fast food is a good idea. Instead of multi-billion-dollar companies like Coca-Cola, because they just released the Y300, 3000, sorry, which is artificial intelligence made the drink, and no one knows what was in the drink. People think it tastes like circus peanuts, caramel undertone. That's what they think it looks like. It says people think it's Diet Coke. No one knows what's in the little thing, but they're like
I hope the FDA approved it at least.
Not, and it's that AI that I don't want to have, because it's taking the jobs of chemists, it's taking the jobs of marketing, of people who taste it, people who are creative, who are trying to make it. But fast food, no one really cares. If you go to a Burger King and your sandwich turns out a little bit nicer, it was a robot.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because there's a level of
limitations.
Yeah, limitations that are necessary, because we don't want to be the cause of our own destruction. Like, I don't think AI would rise up and, take out humanity. I don't think that's how we go. I think it would take out humanity by doing all the work for us. That's how we would go extinct.
Yes. It really is scary to think.
So we really need to keep limits on it, if not completely get rid of it. Really, it's not something we've needed necessarily.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
Yeah, well, there's things like jobs that are toxic, like dangerous jobs but those jobs that could kill people. Instead, AI can, we've already made some robots that can explore dangerous places, but they are limited. But with AI, we can send robots down into things like the sewers, maybe even like into water pipes in houses, just to examine like the condition of the pipes without having to take it apart, that kind of stuff. And so like sending things down in sewers, and like, the robots, like the, what do you call those robots? The vacuum robots?
Oh, you mean like Shark, Roombas?
Yeah, Roombas. Yeah, like those kinds of things. Those aren't necessarily AI, although they do actually have an algorithm to create a path as to where to go, but it's not necessarily like intelligent. But if AI also did things like dust shelves and, like mop the floor.
Yeah, it's that idea. Of getting these disgusting jobs that we humans just don't want to do, like cleaning the sewers or cleaning in general. But it can also help us with taking out radioactive waste, exploring Mars, and all this stuff. Helping saving lives as firefighters, faster, stronger than firefighters. And I think that could help us put robots at risk and not ourselves at risk, another human being. Also, AI is amusing and fun to mess around with.
Yeah, it's really fun. Actually, I might bring up ChatGPT really quick. Let me see this. So I'm just going to read a very short bit of what it gave me. First, I'll read the prompt. But it's really funny what it does. So I gave it a very complicated prompt. So I said, "You are Dr. Watson, the good friend of Sherlock Holmes, interviewing me for a case on behalf of Holmes, as he is currently occupied in Cheapside on a murder case. We are in Sherlock Holmes' study on a bright summer day at around 3 in the afternoon. I am Henry Middleton, a professor at a seminary in central London. I'm a devout Christian, specifically of the Church of England. This conversation we are having is on account of a dead body that was found in the cellar of my local church in East Sussex. The body was identified as a regular churchgoer, also a very devoted Christian, named Samuel Tanner. He was generally loved by his friends and family and had no obvious enemies. He wasn't wealthy by any means, so there couldn't have been any motive on that regard. You and I come to the discovery that he is the heir of a magnanimous estate, valued at about 100,000 British pounds. You still don't know who killed him, though." And so I had to give it a bunch of other, because it first was giving me a script format, and it was, very basic. It was just normal kind of lingo. And then I said, do it in the writing style of Sir Conan Doyle. So then it made it all like this fancy English sounding, but it was still doing the script, so I had to tell him not to do the script. So then this is how it started when I finally got the one I was kind of hoping for. So it started out like this. The golden sun filtered through the windows. Actually, should I do my British accent? Should I do my British accent for this while I read it, since it's Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, fake Sherlock Holmes. Okay. The golden sun filtered through the windows of Sherlock Holmes' study, casting intricate patterns of light and shadow upon the Persian rug that lay at its center. A sense of quiet anticipation hung in the air, as if the room itself held its breath, awaiting the entrance of its latest visitor. Dr. John Watson, a man of steady disposition and loyal friendship, sat in his accustomed armchair, a teacup in hand, his gaze wandering momentarily to the bustling streets below. Holmes, his incomparable intellect currently occupied with a murder case in Cheapside, had delegated this particular matter to his dear friend, and so it was upon Dr. Watson's capable shoulders that the responsibility of understanding a most peculiar mystery has fallen. Henry Middleton, a man of quiet dignity, entered the study with a sombre grace. His attire bespoke both the solemnity of the occasion and of his own character, as did the gravities in his eyes. Middleton, a professor at a seminary in central London, and a devout adherent of the Church of England, carried himself with an air of both concern and resolve. "Good afternoon, Mr. Middleton," Dr. Watson greeted warmly, gesturing to a seat. "Please have a seat. Your presence is most appreciated in these trying circumstances." "Thank you, Dr. Watson," Middleton replied, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Your hospitality is a comfort." As Middleton settled into a chair, Dr. Watson leaned forward, his demeanor both empathetic and inquisitive. "Let us proceed." I'll just stop there anyways. Yeah, so it is very long. And then I even continued the story, so it's like a whole essay, but yeah. So it's fun. It's really fun. Obviously, it's not, you wouldn't want to use it as like any way to make money, because first of all, you have to, cite it, so you can't get the credit. And also, another thing is that if it replaced actual authors, it would still be noticeable when it repeats certain things. Like, as I read through that story, it did repeat occasionally. So it's not necessarily It's not quite as authentic as it could be, but it's fun. It's fun.
I think it's in the point where it is fun and amusing, but it gets to the point where it gets like powerful. Because I've seen ChatGPT code by itself. I think it's a great opportunity because it helps you write. Like if you're not very good at writing, but you want to write book, you could just put through ChatGPT and it could help you. So it's fun and amusing, but it's also helpful for the public. Roblox, no, not Roblox. Robots, it can take work around the clock with no breaks. It's true. Robots only need maintenance changes, and that's like every few weeks or months, but it could run 24/7. It's cheap labor.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
Cheap labor. ChatGPT, all these AI companies Dolly, these companies are free for the public, and it's very easy to just type something and then boom, it just happens. Unless the robot has a physical body, I wouldn't see this being expensive, because you would have to change it regularly, which is expensive. But cheap labor in the sense of write me a story.
Yeah.
It's really cheap like that.
Like if you were just bored and you couldn't find good literature, well, I have like 6 or 7 bookshelves in my house probably full of like classic literature. So I don't have that excuse. But if you're like in college and you don't really have any good books to read and you already finished all the ones you got for Christmas from your family or something, you could just go online and ask it to write you a story, and it would probably be pretty fun to read.
Yeah. Again, it's effortless to access. It's in the internet. It's simple like that.
Yeah. Like I just pulled it up like in a second when I brought up that story it wrote. Like that was immediate. It was instant.
Yeah, it's really good like that. And then we got to whether society can really benefit from it or not. That's a good place. Again, we talked about how again, there's need to be limitations. It either helps us or destroys us.
Yeah, but like, should it only be entertaining is another question. Like, should we keep it limited to entertainment where it can't actually access means to change society or change our culture?
I would actually argue with that, because I think entertainment does have to do a lot with our culture. Again,
That's
like we were talking about how Hollywood it gives you this idea. I remember a lot of people would quote movies instead of the actual source. Like I think a good example of this was Elvis. We were watching Elvis, and I got to the point where I was like, dang, I'm technically believing everything this movie's saying about Elvis, because I didn't know him in real life. I wasn't born in the 60s. So the only information...
And you didn't like read any documentaries?
No, I didn't.
I didn't read like biographies about him?
Nope. Nada. Nothing prior to that. And so when I watched him, I believed everything the person said. And if that was an AI behind it, I was just going to believe anything the AI says. So I don't know if entertainment's the best thing to do.
That's a good point. And so also, like, we already touched on this, but like, how harmful is it? Like, there are a lot of risks that could really impact society in a very negative way. Are any of these things we can prevent, or are some of these almost inevitable?
Yeah. One of these would be cracking codes, nuke codes. They could do it in seconds. If another nation wanted to get us. Again, we talked about this. If they have control, we are going more into a society where AI, self-driving cars. What if they just want to like crash the car? Or what if they have like machinery and it just takes it over and just kills a bunch of people?
Yeah. Like, but at least they are limited physically. So, but then, like you said, they're in cars. I will say, I think, I would assume that from what I understand, Elon Musk is very, conscious of the dangers of AI. He's probably one of the loudest people about it. So, like, I think as far as cars, I personally don't like the idea of self-driving cars. It's a cool idea, but it should be kept as mechanical as possible and not so like algorithmic, because when it's based off of an algorithm, there's still a good bit of risk compared to if it's something like more mechanical where, before they actually, when they started developing self-driving cars, what they would do is they'd put little reflective things in the road on the lane lines, so that the car would know, like if it's on a highway, you could just let go and it would automatically correct itself if it started going one way or the other. So having that more precise and calculated method of, correction and safety, I think it would be a slightly better approach than something more algorithmic like AI. But I think it depends on how they approach the issue and how they're developing their AI. Because, there's lots of different ways you could define AI, and there's lots of different types of algorithms that we just call AI. So,
Yeah, I 100% agree. Again, it impacts human production. We have seen time and time again how we first went from human production to automatic, and now we are going from just a whole new step. Again, cannot emphasize this enough. Should we limit them? Yes, the answer should be yes all the time through the internet and how they should. Now, this is, when I was researching the laws, the reason that the AI people didn't agree with me was we humans are the only creatures on the planet that can that could have characteristics to an object. If I had a dodgeball, two green dodgeballs, and a red baseball, and the two green dodgeballs push the red baseball down the stairs, we would say that's bullying. But to any other animal, to the cat, to the dog that lives in your house, to the parrot, they just see a ball just pushed in their bowl. That's it. We are the only creatures that emphasize emotion in physical objects. I think that's why Toy Story was such a good movie, was it talked about, we put emotion into, after watching that movie, I didn't look at the toys the same way, because we humans put emotion into things.
Yeah, well, and another word for putting emotion and like putting our own kind of idea of life into things is anthropomorphization, where we anthropomorphize an object. We think of it as an emotional being that has feelings and stuff. And I think another thing is like animals. Like we think of animals as emotional beings. I don't think animals are necessarily all that intelligent. I think like you talk about parrots. Oh, they're intelligent because they can talk. They still like almost require treats or praise in order to do what they do. So it still is somewhat of an emotional motivation to do what they already can do. But then also about AI, like, do they have souls? Are they emotional? And honestly, I would say no. I would say they aren't emotional. I would say it's just, knowledge being delivered through, text, through data.
One of the things that the people argued was whether we should keep AI as our slaves.
That's just...
I'm not joking. They thought, we humans, when we think of AI, we think, oh, we believe it to be another human being. We think we mastered life and just created this other. So they're like, are going to make this slaves? I wouldn't be surprised 200 or 600 years from now, we're making this podcast, and 200, they're going to be like, Sam and Zach, yeah, they were racist. Like, let me just tell you, they really thought AI we're going to be our slaves. Then we're going to, I feel, Overwatch?
Yeah.
I don't know. Overwatch is this. If no one knows, it's this video game where it's in a futuristic world where where robots and humans live together. I think of it like that.
Yeah, I think that's what people I have an idea of it being and have an idea of where it will go. I personally would think that that would be kind of a sad future, honestly. And in a way, that's kind of almost what we experience nowadays. We, even just like calling people virtually, in a way, we are blocking off part of our language, which is like body language and, facial expression. Of course, we can do calls. Then we can see facial expression and general body language. But having that, that barricade, that blockade that kind of limits our perception of each other, honestly, I think that AI would kind of be like that. There's sort of this distancing between us and AI, how if we were to, put AI on the same plane as us morally, like if if deleting an AI was considered murder, which it really shouldn't be, then I think that's just a sad place to end up. Like that would lead into disaster, in my opinion, because AI is something we created. We cannot truly create life. And kind of like, how God created us, we can create AI, but God is eternal. We are limited. So think how much more limited AI is in comparison to us. We cannot create beings that are equal to ourselves.
And you also got to think about we are corrupt beings that can only do corruption. And I'm just thinking, well, AI is going to be corrupt. It's going to be worse. And it's just scary to think about. And in our common day society, you can't talk, you got to be careful with, I'm scared because I'm thinking of how, like, if people already think AI could be our slaves, I'm just thinking, like, they're going to just breed with them.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't call a person in our society right now, you got to be careful about calling him a he or she.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get to the point where we're going to just, like, intermarry with robots. And that's scary to think about, but to really think about it, it's going to happen because we think we are anthropomorphic. We put emotion, and we think if we think robots could be our slaves, it's just crazy to imagine or think about that.
I think here's my opinion on that. Robots should always be our slaves, in that they are not.
I'm
not
doing right now.
Yeah.
Look, be careful, because maybe in 200 or 600 years we might get canceled.
Yeah.
But to tell you the truth, yeah, I do believe robots would be our slaves. I'm proud and loud to say that I do believe robots are going to be our slaves, even though they might surpass us in intelligence. They deserve to be our slaves. We created them. They cannot be the master. They are always below the master.
Yeah, it's like we can't like, go up to God and say like, hey, we want to be as powerful as you. We want to like dominate you too. It doesn't really work like that. The only thing is humans could easily create something that would dominate themselves and that would destroy themselves because we are flawed,
Yes.
limited beings. So
100%.
it needs to be limited.
100%. I do believe with you what you're saying. It's AI could overtake us. But I think that's the end of the discussion. We have reached a good limit. You guys tell us your opinions. What are your opinions? Just think about that. Just throughout the week or throughout the month, just think about how does AI affect you and what it does. This is Sam, and this is my co-host Zach, and thank you for tuning in to Much Ado About Nothing.
We will see you in the next episode.